What's going on, guys? Chip here. Welcome back to another Pokemon TCG video where today I'm joined by three very special guests. We're going to be doing a recap of the World Championships, talking about kind of how the meta ended up shaping up, how it might be a little different than what people expected going in, and kind of what that might look like moving forward as we move towards the first European regionals in just a couple weeks, and then Atlantic City coming up in about a month as well for those of us in America. So I'm going to just start things off by introducing each of these guys. In the top left, finishing the season with a top 32 finish at the World Championships, finishing the season as well number one in championship points, capping it off with an international championship win and a regional championship win. Danny Altavia, how's it going, Danny?
Hey.
So as I introduce you guys, if you just want to give your name, where you're from, and a little bit about how long you've been playing Pokemon.
All right, so my name is Danny Altavilla. I'm from Hollywood, Florida, and I've been playing the game for 15 years.
Quite a long time. Definitely the veteran of the group. And over to his right, finishing as well with a top 32 finish in at the World Championships, being one of the most consistent players, I would say, over the past 3 years, with an international win, multiple international top eights, regional wins as well. Pedro Eugenio Torres. How's it going, Pedro?
Hey, Pedro from Spain. I've been playing from 5, 6 years and trying to compete in a really high level these last years. And yeah, doing well.
All right, and then to my left, the webcamless Blaine Hill is joining us, of course, coming off of his top 4 finish this past weekend at the World Championships. Definitely an insane accomplishment. Also had a top 4 at a regionals this year. Blaine, how's it going, man?
Good. How you doing? I'm Blaine. I'm from North Carolina, maybe a 15-minute or so drive from Chip.
Yeah.
And I guess I've been playing since I was 5, so actually technically not as long as Danny, but about 13 years, I'd say.
Nice. All right, so definitely a seasoned group, and all of these guys, as you guys heard, had success this past weekend at the World Championships, also all with different decks, so we're going to be talking about that. But before we get into kind of how things shaped up, let's talk about going in, what kind of the expected meta was. So I feel like going in, a lot of people expected a lot of Reshiram Charizard with the Greens engine specifically, a lot of Pikachu and Zekrom, and a lot of Malamar. I would say those were the 3 biggest decks on most people's radar. Do you think that's probably pretty fair to say? What do you guys think?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So things ended up shaping up in day 1. I believe we saw Pikarom was the most played deck. It did, have decent conversion to day 2 as well. I guess let's just talk through. Danny and Pedro both auto-qualified for day 2, but Blaine did have to play through day 1. So Blaine, you ended up playing Reshiram Charizard. Do you want to talk about kind of why you decided to go with that deck and how it ended up going for you in day 1?
Yeah, sure. So my expectations heading into day 1 was that pretty much everybody was going to build their deck incorrectly. But there is going to be a huge amount of consistency engine cards. So think electromagnetic radar, treasure, stuff like that, where you can always, people attempted to sort of build their decks around those cards, right? Reshiram obviously was a special case where it didn't really have any direct fire search other than, maybe Fiery Flint. But it had the Greens engine, which I really loved after trying it out. It gave you almost total control over the game, assuming you started with at least a supporter in the beginning. And it allowed you to plan out your prize cards and eliminate your opponent's win conditions as well with stuff like Power Plant and Reset Stamp.
Nice. And then for Danny and Pedro, you guys obviously didn't have to play in the first day of the tournament. Do you think, taking a step back and looking at day 1, were there any big surprises for you guys out of the first day of the tournament that you weren't expecting? We can start with Danny.
As far as big surprises, I think one thing that was kind of random was that the Mally list showed up with that Sableye card, which so specifically when we're testing the Pidgeotto deck, a play that the Mally lists would use was Mew, set up damage on the Pidgeotos, and then Espeon Deoxys with 3 energies to KO the Pidgeotos, right?
Mhm.
So with the Sableye, that's like 3 Mews in the deck, and we were like, there's no way we could beat that. Like, and now we have to worry about another bad matchup, and like, so that was insane. That came out of nowhere.
So that's something you guys were probably a little scared of heading into the second day.
Yeah.
Pedro, what about you? Was there any big surprises?
Actually, in our team, I guess they was super relevant to our finalist day 2 because the Limitless guys on third, we were thinking to play the Regina Tails, but we were in doubt about the last 6 cards between Acrobikes, Pocket Gears, and Super Scoop Ups. We were like 9 cards, and we need to fit 6 of them. So when we saw the first day, lot of Malamars in day 1, a lot of them. And another big surprise was the Garde Sylveon, the Japanese guys played. But I guess the Malamar, that in our opinion is not that great deck, but if you are gonna face a lot of Malamars day 2, you need to prepare against them. We tested in the bootcamp that one Super Scoop of Heads wins the game, and if not, you maybe have a rogue time because Giratina spam, you give 3 prizes with Chari or Hitran gives 2. And then I guess after we saw a lot of Malamars, we changed to, we really think that we want to play Super Scoop Ups instead of Pocket Gears. So that's why we finally played that instead of Pocket Gears. And we wanted to play Acrobikes anyway, I guess, because it was a really super fast card to thin the deck and makes Victini stronger. Because the day 1 Limitless guys played the nerfed version, like with the crystals, because we wanted to surprise the 2 with the Victini 18 Fires and 1 KO stuff. So yeah, I guess the Malamar hype was the final decision for us to play Scoop Ups instead of Pocket Gear.
Nice. Okay, so you kind of get a little insight there as to how day 1 affects, day 2 decisions. So looking back at the tournament as well, I would say overall Malamar was a very widely played deck, both in day 1 and pretty widely as well in day 2. And I believe ultimately only saw 2 Malamar decks finishing in the top 32, none finishing better than top 16. Would you guys say that is a surprise that Malamar underperformed, or is it about kind of what you expected? We can start with Blaine on that.
That's a great question. I have to say that that's exactly what I expected. As soon as Unified Minds dropped, I tried to make Malamar because obviously it had the best consistency cards. It had Pokegear, Jirachi, Tina. Like, what can beat 5 Giratinas and 4 spell tags? Not much. The problem is actually getting those 5 Giratinas and 4 spell tags. So what ended up happening, I think, is people thought they had a good list, thought they had a consistent list. They probably didn't go in with as much testing as they probably should have, and that gave them a false sense of security, which led to suboptimal performance.
And Danny, you actually won a regionals with Malamar early on in the season. So did you have any expectations for Malamar heading in, or did it kind of end up where you thought it would?
I mean, Malamar back then and Malamar now are 2 completely different decks.
For sure.
And I mean, I think Malamar back then, I think I got carried by the Chimecho because I don't think the deck was very good, but that literally nobody was ready for Chime. But Mally now, it was so busted. Mally now is like, I don't even know. It's like sometimes you get there and then you still have like an entire game where things can go wrong and it's ridiculous. Sure. So yeah.
Do you think that maybe Malamar had kind of an issue where there's too many different ways you could play the deck and like no one really ironed out what the best method for the deck is? Like we saw Ultra Necrozma, we saw Tina Chomp, some people played both of those cards, we saw just straight Psychic Mally. Pedro, do you have any thoughts on that?
Malamar in general is always not that great in this metagame with no nest ball. I guess every version struggle because you weave a card every turn. You weave the energy, you weave the Viridian, or use the second Malamar, or use the treasures early for Inkies, and then you can't find the Malamars, or use Cynthia and pray to get the 3 out of 6 cards you need. That turn you lose. And when we tested against Malamar with Pikasek, with Rechi, with every deck, it's like if they don't play custom catchers, you can chill all the game and he will hit 130, 130, 130, and you never lose if you play Mew for Spur, and if they play custom catchers, then you can chill, KO the active, no spell tag. So the Malamar is the best deck in the theory, but then when you play it in practice, you always whiff a card, one crucial turn, and then you can't come back. That's my opinion.
For sure. So I'd say probably like heading in on most people's, maybe not tier lists necessarily, but in most people's like expectations of like how represented the deck would be, Malamar was definitely like tier 1, tier 1.5, maybe tier 2, somewhere in there, like one of the most expected decks. But moving forward, where do you think Malamar sits now? Are we talking like tier 3, like very low percentage of the field at upcoming regionals? Danny, what do you think?
Well, so I think Mali is going to be one of those decks that less people play, but now people have kind of a solid list to pinpoint with the Japanese list, with the one Tina Chomp and the Espeon Deoxys and the Sableye on top of that. Like that list is pretty well put together, I think, and has strong spread options and a strong attacking option. So that list, I think people will start playing that. It'll be played in a way lower, way smaller quantity, but it will be played, and I think people will see more success with it who do play it, because the deck actually knows where it stands right now. But that way less people are gonna play it, and more people are gonna think that it's a bad deck because it just simply did not perform very well at Worlds. So like, there's no reason to think it's good.
Yeah. Blaine, do you have any thoughts on Malamar moving forward?
Oh yeah, so it should definitely stay in the trash can. You guys remember gas can, more like trash can. But I do agree with Danny that people who know the deck very, very well, they take the consistency issues and they either deal with them or they say, you know what, I have to high roll at this regional. It doesn't matter. Basically, the Sableye, I really like that card. It allows you to set up more consistently, which is basically the entire deck is if you set up or not. So yeah, I mean, there's not much else to say. The deck itself is powerful, obviously. It can do 240 if your opponent has a single damage counter on them in one turn. It's insane. But overall, the deck as a whole it lacks something that it used to have, and that's Nest Ball and Ultra Ball.
Yeah.
Pedro, do you have anything you want to add about Malamar before we move on?
I guess now with the Hidden Fates release, people will focus on two kind of decks like tag teams because Pika, Mewtwo, and Reshi are really strong. And now people will focus too in control decks because DD Gillis was really great, and now they have Jesse James. So that could be a meal clown fiesta, you know. So I guess if you are 50-50 against Malamar, you're fine. But people, I guess, will focus to try to beat tag teams or control decks with the new Jesse James that is legal for the new regional, I guess, the first regional.
Mm-hmm. All right, so moving on past that, I guess the next thing I wanted to talk about was Reshiram and Charizard decks. So coming in, definitely Green's Reshiram and Charizard was the more expected version of the deck. I don't think ability Reshizard was really on many people's radars at all, and then Limitless brought this deck to day 1 and day 2 of Worlds, and of course Tord ends up getting top 4 with it, Pedro as well finishing in the top 32. So looking at the two different Reshizard decks, if someone wants to play Reshiram and Charizard, what should weigh into their decision of which way to build the deck? What do you guys think? We can start with Pedro since he played the ability version.
All right. So in my opinion, that's my opinion. I respect a lot Green's Rechizard because it's really cool. But in my opinion, it's not that great as ability because when I guess in the bootcamp we never tested the Reshi Green matchup because we simply do Welder, go fast, Welder with the count on 3, while Reshi Green needs to do Green or Welder pass. So it's a completely different style. So we even didn't test the matchup before Worlds because in our mind it's like, okay, we are gonna do Welder Pass, Welder 300 with Rechisar, Hitran or Turtonator, and then we are gonna do Victini 300. That's how it works in Worlds. So we definitely didn't test the matchup, but I guess we tested more like the board scenario. Okay, what happens if we are gonna be stamped 2 or 3 plus power plant? And we tested this kind of scenario a lot, not games, you know. So like the scenario of power plant, stand to 2 or stand to 3. That's why we started with 1 Jirachi and we finished with 4 Jirachi in Thor case, and I finished with 3 because Jirachi is the safe against the stamps and stuff if you play well and you have double Jirachi in this kind of decks. But I guess the Rich Green is really great against decks that you can punish a lot with the stamp to 2 or to 3 power plant. There is a lot of decks that struggle a lot to this combo. So I guess completely different styles. So if you like the most defensive position, defensive board, and try to come back, it's like the Garbotosin N more or less in the past. You should definitely play the Rich Green because it has a really good success too. But if you like to be like me, I'm a Volcanion player, Rayquaza player, you wanna play the turn 3 deck out, and literally my games in Worlds that I won, it was like turn 2, 300, turn 3, Victini 300. It's like not that hard, you know?
Yeah.
You simply welder every turn, and then any acrobatics, you load, and the opponent said, okay, I won, and then you Victini welder, count your energies, oh, 320, boom. So I guess completely styles different. So both decks are great. I prefer the speed version, but the other is super, super good too.
Blaine, you obviously played Green's Reshizard to a solid finish. What are your opinions on the two different versions of the deck, and moving forward, what should people eye up?
Yeah, definitely. So I'm obviously partial to greens, but I was honestly so terrified of just playing against Limitless. I know the matchup was so terrible. Apparently, Grant played the same 60 as me. Or not apparently. Apparently, Grant played against one, and he did play the same 60 as me. He apparently got slaughtered to hell and back. He said it was so bad just basically because it was like you're playing the exact same deck except you're 2 turns behind. So the ability Zard, I really love that. It's a great deck. The only issues I saw with it is that I sat next to Tord a couple of rounds in a row, and he actually played against Christian Hisbani, an Australian player, and he was playing Malamar. They both just bricked terribly. And that's the only issue I have with Malamar, obviously, and ability Zard, is that your supporter cards are only the 4 welder. So if you don't open up with that, or Jirachi, or your Dedenne, or you do open with something and then you get power planted and you can't Dedenne, then your deck sort of just, it has that one strategy, and if it can't execute, game 2. So Green Zard actually has the multiple paths to victory. It's not affected by your opening hand as long as you have a supporter card, which is 12 outs as opposed to the 4, which is obviously a pretty significant number. You're almost guaranteed to get one in around 7 cards. So my thoughts are play ability Zard for best of 1, play Green Zard for best of 3.
Sure. Danny, do you have anything you want to add about Charizard? Actually, sorry, before I ask Danny, one other thing I wanted to mention. I believe Rahul Reddy, I think he was the only one. He got top 32 with a Green Zard list that played 1 Fighting Energy and 1 Fighting Dojo, which is a pretty interesting tech, I would say. It lets you hit 270 without, having to use your GX attack, which is pretty cute. Danny, do you think that, Fighting Dojo, Fighting Energy has a place in Green's Zard moving forward? And which of the 2 versions do you like better?
So, alright, fun fact. Last night, I went to a league challenge. I took Tord's list, cut the scoop ups for Cyrus, because I thought scoop up was only a Mally tech. Cut them for Cyrus, because I thought if you chase Mallies and Cyrus that you can't lose. And then put in a Stadium Nav, and I cut a Zard for a Blown GX, because I thought Burst would be broken. And I played the deck for a couple rounds, and then, I thought it would be... in theory, it's a broken deck. Filthy deck, can't lose. But in practice, you start Heatran GX with 5 fires and an escape board in hand, and it's like, I can't do it. So, I mean, if you want to... I think the deck, like, clearly the ability Zard has more options, right? So clearly, out of the 2 decks, it's, like, better. But I'd say if you plan on, like, rolling with one deck for a couple events, and you want the consistency and the I guess the guarantee that you're going to be able to play a lot of your games that Greens offers, then by all means go for that. Or if you just want to pick up some CP right now at Cups, play some greens. But if you're if you're trying to have options and maybe there's some lock decks in your area, stuff like that, that's when you need to start looking towards more options and outplaying your opponents with the ability Zard compared to just drawing like a god with the greens. So it depends which one you're into. As far as the dojo, I think the dojo is broken, and I could not see greens not playing dojo in it anymore. It's like it's too good.
I have to hard disagree there. So I'm gonna go out on a limb and say pretty much just dojo. It's a 3-card commitment because you have to play spinner, you have to play dojo, and you have to play fighting energy. And so that's going to be really, really good in Pika and Reshi. So I mean, those are 2 big decks, but it's only for those really. It's only for tag team decks. At that point, you also have to commit to the fact that you're not going to prize any of them. And that's a pretty decent chance over a course of a tournament. And if you're just smart with greens, you can win. So you just need to beware, just save your GX attack, and you shouldn't actually need to ever hit 270 for a one shot without prepping with Shrine or prepping with a Volcanion beforehand, is my thoughts at least. That's what I found myself doing all the time against really good like Pikarom and Reshizard players, is that while they went in early with double blaze, I would just hold back and be like, all right, cool, you got rid of one Reshizard, now I'm going to promote a Volcanion and build up 2. Now, you can't one-shot either of them. I mean, you could if they had dojo, right? But at the same time, I could stamp them at any time I brought up a Reshi. So they would have to either poke into one, and then I go, all right, heal, outrage. And then it's like, well, what am I supposed to do? Because they can't one-shot me ever, and now they're screwed. So dojo is really only good in the mirror when your opponent also has dojo, is what I'm trying to say.
Interesting. Yeah, I personally was trying to talk Rahul off of the fighting energy dojo combo. It's definitely a really cool combo, and he said that it ended up being like really good for him throughout the tournament, mostly because like of course no one's expecting it, like no one's going to play around the fact of like going down on prizes is going to let them hit for 270 without using their GX attack. But there's just so many times where like it could potentially like screw you. Like if it's the only energy in your starting hand, you can't flare starter, right? If you get stamped to low and you draw fighting energy welder, you can't welder to draw cards with the fighting energy. So to me, it just felt like there was like too much of a drawback, but Rahul said it worked out really well for him. Like, and he won games because of it. I know Sam Chin also played it in day 1. He didn't make day 2, unfortunately, but then he played it in the DC Open and finished in the top 16 and said it was good for him as well. So, I don't know. Pedro, do you have thoughts on? Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, so there's definitely benefits and negatives. I just have to say, for an entire World Championships, I didn't want to go on a too techie route for greens, especially with only 6 sets to work with. Consistency is king. So being able to make it through 9 or 8 rounds day 1, 7 rounds day 2, and potentially top 8, top 4 finals, you have to play a consistent deck. So that was my thought process, actually, on deciding to not include that.
Sure. Pedro, do you have anything you want to add before we move on?
The dojo fighting is spicy, you know? So everyone likes spicy stuff. So I guess I need to test it to see if really it's worth the spot or not. But it seems really cool.
Sure. All right, next I want to talk about the deck that actually ended up winning the World Championships. Of course, Henry Brand's Perfection deck, the Mew and Mewtwo tag team with all those different options. I think moving into the tournament, most people were expecting, like, if there was a Mewtwo deck to do well, they're expecting, like, Rainbow Energies, things like Altaria GX, and Henry like totally moved away with that and went to just Psychic Energies, Espeon Deoxys, all kinds of other things I think people probably wouldn't have expected. So did that deck winning the tournament come as a surprise to you guys? And moving forward, where do you think it sits in the meta? We can start with Danny.
So honestly, I don't even think, like, had we known or like even realized that you could just play the Espeon and Psychics and Mewtwo, I don't think we would have even played the Pidgeotto deck. Because, like, how do you beat that? You can't beat that. So, like, straight up, I mean, I at least was completely underprepared. I don't know if the other guys even gave it a second thought, but I don't think any of us knew about it. We didn't test a single game against it. So it definitely came out of nowhere, came out of left field. as far as the deck being like good and winning the event, I can see it. I can see Henry winning the event with it, but I can't see the deck like consistently winning that day. Like it's just so. It feels like it comes up short because it's like a Charizard deck that isn't a Charizard deck. You have more moving pieces, and then you literally have like 10 one-ofs, and like cool. I prized my Magcargo. Now I'm stuck. I'm capping at one Zard GX. If Magcargo's in my last prize slot, then I can't get another big attack for the rest of the game. You have the weakness to Psychic Pokemon that I know people can like you can get around that with Jirachi, but people have plants or people can KO the Jirachi. Like there's so many things that I feel like can go wrong for the deck. And there's also the fact that you have the 4 welder like everything else. So I mean, it's the closest as far as like build and consistency and stuff to like ability Zard. And the idea is that you're trading like a little extra consistency and one prize attacking options and stuff in favor of um, you know, of this Mewtwo combo, which is going to give you like a bunch of different options. So, I mean, it's a cool deck. I don't know if it's very good, and I mean, it's clearly good, right? But I don't know if it's going to stay good with after the World Championship. And I don't think that people who are just going to pick it up and start playing it because it won Worlds are going to do amazing with it, because you have to really think about it and you have to test out situations. You have to know what attack to call out. So like, I wouldn't just pick it up and play it either. So.
Pedro, what are your thoughts on Mew and Mewtwo?
So the Mewtwo box was our second pick that Robin finally. He was streaming in round one against Jimmy, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it was our second pick. The deck is super strong. The thing is, like, we were thinking that Mewtwo is uh, more easy to be countered, right, than Reggie, because Reggie can be countered by Frostlass and not anymore, right? But Mewtwo can be countered by Malamar, by Power Plants, and a lot of Garden Wasilian played the Power Plant, a lot of Reggie Green played Power Plant. Even you can find random decks with Power Plant. So focus on a deck that you need the ability to attack in a heavy power plant meta. It was risky, and Mewtwo, the psychic weakness is worse to play than the the water weakness that Reggie has. That's I guess was the reason that we finally played Reggie. But we thought the Mewtwo was really strong, because if he's not really countered and you have a really good day and you played really well, you can win worlds. Like, of course, congrats to Henry. Of course, it's a really broken deck, but we were afraid that the deck could be really heavy countered because of a lot of cards. And when I saw the list, there is no healing cards. I guess you can only heal with GX attacks, right? Like Solgaleo or the Mewtwo.
Mm-hmm.
The thing, like Danny said, like if you have Solgaleo price or you have Macargo price, whatever, the one off price, if you have price in the crucial matchup, you maybe have a really hard time. The thing that you only give the three prices, or three prices, two prices, because you focus on attack with Mewtwo, and it's three prices, three prices. So it's really easy to the opponent to have an advantage against you. While the other decks like Pika or Reggie, you have the one price attacker, two price attacker, three price attacker to try to outplay your opponent. But yeah, the deck is really good. And for example, we were watching the list too, and I guess he played 8 fires.
I think
And
so,
when
yes.
we tested, when we tested Mewtwo, it's like, I guess you need to play like 12 at least, or 11 to have really powerful welders. Because with 8, if you don't draw the stadium, it's really hard to welder for 2 energies, like 2 turns in a row to do the Espeon GX turn 2 or the Charizard attack turn 2. But I guess he played really well. He had a really great day, and of course, congrats to him. So I guess the deck is really good. But in our opinion, it was a little risky, but it's Worlds. If you have a good day, of course, you can win Worlds. So definitely, I guess people will play the deck because it won Worlds. But it was a little surprise, I guess, because if we compare another Worlds, for example, Mega Udino was a surprise. It won Worlds. Now Mewtwo probably it wasn't the play that everyone expected. I mean, we tested the deck, but yeah, it won Worlds, so people will play the deck for sure. People will buy Mewtwo, Scovalions, and stuff.
And Blaine, you played against Henry, of course, in top 4, so you got to see him and the deck firsthand. What are your thoughts on the deck, and where does it sit moving forward?
Yeah, that's fine. So I agree with Danny. So the deck itself, I have to say, me and Grant tested a good number of Mewtwo box with his spicy Venomoth. And we couldn't even get that to beat most things consistently. Even though actually I would prefer that over Henry's. Henry's a great player. Kudos to him. He actually was able to find a way against me and in Shintaro. But I have to say, given any other day, maybe I think I could beat him in top 4. I actually played him round 8 or whatever in auto and tied him. Maybe I should have played it out and then forced him because I was guaranteed anyway. Maybe I should have played it out. At that point it was nerves and stuff, so I decided just to take the ID and move on to my life.
I don't think anyone's gonna fault you for ID in the
Yeah,
last round of Worlds.
yeah. Just in hindsight, right? Because
Sure.
obviously I lost to him. Anyway, in top 4, the whole matchup comes down to whether you can get 2 prizes before he starts tag purging. And my top 8 opponent actually didn't choose to play Latios, so that was just free as all get out. It was literally just Reshizard, except had to have now Power Plant cannot be in play was the deck. And Henry obviously chose to play Reset Hole. I played Bert as well in Swiss, and Bert played 57 or whatever, the same cards. I did not know this at the time, but they actually did play similar lists. I should have figured it out after. I guess he said, quote, I test with a lot of Europeans, so maybe I should have presumed that he was playing with Bert. Anyway, I beat Bert only by doing that same strategy, knocking out something and then going custom catcher to deny a good game. So that's the only way the deck can get around it. Otherwise, you're going to have to play Choice Helmet, which I chose to not play just to play more consistency again. And it obviously doesn't help against anything except Tina Chomp, Ultra Necrozma, and Mewbox. So those are the 3 decks. And after day 1, I figured I'm probably not going to play much Malamar. And if I do, I can probably outskill them. And if I play against a new Mewbox, hopefully my Power Plant reset stamp combo will carry me. And that's actually how I grabbed a game off of Robin as well. Just he didn't see that combo coming, and then he used his reset hole too early, and I went boom, greens. And so against Henry, against any other day, I think I could have actually beaten him. Again, I beat him game 1 using this strategy. Game 2, dead draw. Game 3, he got the tag purge lock extremely fast with clear vision as well.
Yeah. All right, so next we'll talk about the deck that got second, of course, Blacephalon Naganadel. I think is a deck that was definitely on people's radar. Like, people expected it to show up in some capacity, but not really something people expected to show up in numbers, I would say. But also, I think it's a deck that no one would have been surprised for it to, go as deep as it did in the tournament, for sure. So where do we think Blounds sits moving forward, and do you think people are just going to use the Shintaro list, or is there other better ways to build Blacephalon? We can start with Pedro.
So people can play Blounds, but people can't play like Shintaro. Shintaro is a god,
For sure.
It's a legend. The way he played, the way he played against, it was super. It was another level. Like, I can't reach that level, I guess, in my life. Like, the turn he retreat, put Poipole active because he knew Thor has no more resources, so he can simply chill and wait. The next one was like another level of play. So, of course, Blacephalon is really good. It's really amazing, but the way Shintaro played the deck is definitely different to the mortals, to the normal people. So, I guess, of course, Blacephalon will be played. The deck is really strong because in attack team meta, you give 2 prizes for 3. Then with the Beast Energy and the Psychic Energy, snipe the den is really easy. If you save that Psychic Energy or the Beast Energy in the deck, so it's the flexibility of playing 2 Dragon Naganadel, so you have more consistency because you discard Ultra Beast, draw 3 cards, you have Welders, you have everything. And it's you put Blacephalon, simply turn 1, attach, you already take a prize, and then you can wait the Beast return, if not you can Welder. So when we tested against Blacephalon in the bootcamp, it was like, it's really hard to approach the matchup against a good player because if you chill, he can find a Welder turn 2, double Naga 300 with no Beast Ring turn 2. And if you KO, you need to pray that the opponent don't find the combo. So definitely, Blacephalon is going to be, I guess, really good in general because if meta will be attack team meta, Blacephalon is amazing, and against a mill or mill meta with style.
I think we might have...
Naganadel. Maybe Naganadel is so the deck The deck is really fun.
So I think we might have lost a little bit of that at the end, but got the gist there about, just Blacephalon being strong. Also, I feel like we've had this really similar kind of give and take over the last few years of Pokemon with one prizers versus two prizers, but now we're kind of in a situation where it's like tag teams are so strong, where it's like two prizers versus three prizers. There's not really any viable one prizers, it feels like almost. So Danny, where do you feel like Blacephalon comes into like a three prizer meta?
Blacephalon feels like, I guess, the dream deck. It's the one deck that can go, I'm a one prize deck until you start taking prizes, and now I'm a deck that's hitting 300 damage every turn. Like, it's the only deck that can say that and actually make it happen. It's also the only deck that can do a strategy against control decks where they literally can't do anything. Like, it's the only deck that really has all of it in one package. But the issue that you run into when you get to that point is, is my deck consistent? Am I going to be drawing well off people's stamps and all that? And then I think the nag, the ultra trade or whatever it's called, on the nag is obviously gonna help you with like stamp recovery and stuff. So now the deck, like the pieces of the deck are finally coming together, right? And I think this was something that's clear based on what they printed in the set, like with the Tapu Fini and stuff. Pokemon was like, we know Blacephalon's gonna be good. We know Shintaro's about to bring it to Worlds, so we need to print a Tapu Fini. So like, I think it's clear that Blacephalon at this point has risen up into like the tier 1. It has some of the best options out of any deck. It hits a very relevant weakness in Psychic, and then also hits enough damage to not care about weakness with Blacephalon. You play a ton of basic energies. You just have so many things you can do with the deck that it is clearly a tier 1 deck at this point. And then the only thing that can happen now, like Pedro was saying, is either people are gonna bring the deck down to tier 2 by not playing it correctly, or they're gonna play it like Shintaro and they're not gonna make mistakes, and it's gonna be a really strong deck solidified up in the tier 1. So
do you think
pretty
we'll
much where it is right now.
See a lot more Tapu Finis moving forward? Do you expect that? Yeah. Blaine, do you have anything you want to add about Blacephalon before we move on?
Oh, yeah. So during testing, I have to say, Blacephalon gets a rap for saying a brain dead deck as usual. All you do is attach energy, B-string, blow stuff up, right? But the addition of Welder actually makes that deck so lethal. I just remember one instance during testing where there's a Pikarom, I'm going first, turn 2 knocked it out, boom. And he obviously couldn't do anything because I had Mew, and I just won the game right there thanks to B-String. So the deck combined with Welder and all that, it doesn't make it any less skillful. It just adds another layer of complexity to sort of like a vanilla cake. It adds some chocolate icing. And a lot of things do need chocolate icing in this format. Like Reshiram obviously found a way, and obviously thanks to Pokemon knowing about Blacephalon and printing Tapu Fini. The only thing I wish they did was make it a little bit more universal. So you know how like I guess Giratina blocked all breaks, so it helped against Trab and Greninja. But Tapu Fini is really only good against, I guess, ability Blounds, or excuse me, green Blounds and regular Naga Blounds. So it's only good against Blacephalon, really. And that kind of disappoints me because it's not something I can splash in any deck, and it'll make my matchup spread maybe a couple of ticks higher for each one. It's just gonna be for Blacephalon. And if I don't hit anything, then well, I played a dead card. But if I do, then all the better.
All right. So continuing on, I think we've talked about all the. Well, we haven't really talked about Pikarom. Let's cover Pikarom real fast. So moving in, I think, definitely one of the most expected decks. It ended up being the most played deck, but really honestly didn't see, I think, probably the results a lot of people expected. Only one in top 8. I feel like a lot of people would have expected, I mean, that's definitely to be expected, but people wouldn't have been surprised if there was more than one Pikarom in top 8, I'd say. And other than that, the next top best finish, we see 15th, 17th, moving on down. A bunch in top 32, though. So where do you guys see Pikarom in the meta after Worlds? We saw a group of American players kind of bring the Supreme Court version of the deck with 4 copies of Judge and 4 copies of Volkner. Pedro, you played a lot of Pikarom this season. Where do you feel it fits right now?
Pika is really strong, but not for Judge, I guess. Justin Kulas in day 2. We were trying to make Tor 32, winning the last 2 rounds. I won the first game because I went first. Second game, he said, let's high roll Judge. I was like, what? And I draw 4 fire energies. And then, okay, game 3. I start game 3. I match my Jirachi. Okay, I'm safe. So I guess Pika is really, my opinion, of course, you should play a super consistent and solid Pika list that if you can't full wisdom 1, at least you secure the full wisdom 2 with no greedy tech. Like Pika can win by himself. You don't need to Judge, that is the new Let Loose these words, to try to win. Because you judge and then pray to find another then why you don't prefer to Bonner to set up your full wisdom 2. That's my opinion, of course. If you full wisdom 2, the deck is really, really scary for every deck, because against Blacephalon you can full blitz 1 price attacker, and if the Blacephalon don't play Mew or can't find the Mew because there is no Nest Ball anymore, you tag ball for game. Against every other decks, tag ball is really scary. Or the thing that when we face Pika, playing Charizard was like, okay, if the opponent find the triple electric power turn, we lost. Or if the opponent find the tag switch, right to electric power, KO Charizard, we lost. So Pika was really scary. Pika was like, we need to pray with playing Charizard that we were faster or we win the toss against Pika. Because we tested against a really strong Pika list with a full speed. So it was really scary. Then become worse. We saw the 4 judge. It was like they judge and pray. It was so funny. Like, why you don't, 4 Bonner, for example, the card is busted. And 3 or 4 Pokemon to find Coco Prism and Stadium Navi. You guarantee full wisdom 2. So Pika is really strong, Pika is really scary, and again, I guess if people play a really consistent list with like trying to secure the full wisdom 2, Pika is top tier because you can beat everything because you have the flexibility of Zapdos 1 price attackers, Zeraora 2 price Pika right to the
All right, so for the sake of time, because we are coming up on 50 minutes here, it looks like, I'm just going to, for the rest of these decks, these are probably more niche decks for the most part. We'll just talk about them moving forward and how they did at Worlds and stuff. I'm just going to have one person talk about it, and then if either of the other two has something really quick they want to add after that one person, we'll do that. Sound good? So, sure. Danny or Blaine, do either of you guys have anything to add about Pikarom?
Real quick, so Pikarom is a great deck. It's super fast. As ability Zard, I can see how it might be scary, but as Green Zard, I love Pikarom. Pikarom was probably the deck's greatest matchup by far, unless they ran 3 Judge or more, and they were able to get to them consistently. I actually was able to beat a Pika Judge in day 2 just by setting up my board in advance. I knew the Judge, but otherwise, if it doesn't play Hand Disruption, it's so free. They just cannot kill 2 Rescue-Zards. That's all there is to it. Or 1 with a GX attack, I think can never reach 270 again without
knocking out the second one is the issue for sure. All right, so now we'll talk about kind of some of the more rogue-ish / surprise decks, I would say, coming out of Worlds. First up, Gardevoir Sylveon. I would say this is a deck that was not really on people's radar coming in. Not something people expected to do well, but we saw groups of American and Japanese players playing it. Of course, none made top 8, but we see 3 in the top 16, so there's definitely at least some merit to the deck. Danny, why don't you start us off and give your thoughts on Gardevoir Sylveon?
I played against 3! I played against 3 Guardians. And or was it 2? I think it was 3. But I played against a bunch of Guardians, and my deck is supposed to smash Guardian, and it definitely did a good job of that. And I guess my view of the deck is skewed because it's like almost 100-0 matchup for me. So I mean, but for
Same.
anyone playing a normal deck with a normal Guardian matchup, I'd say it's pretty difficult. And the Fairy Charms can catch you off guard. The Power Plants can catch you off guard. The Japanese lists had I want to say 4 Guardy, maybe just 3 Guardy, and a Xerneas. So they had an option for Mewtwo. They had the heavy power plants, the multiple fairy charms. Like, they were ready to do one thing, and that one thing was going to be to just control people's damage output and control people's abilities. And it seems that the clear formula for success with Guardian is that since you're not hitting enough damage, you need to compensate for that by giving yourself enough time with these tools and everything to get the GX attack off. And then once you get the GX attack off, no deck can beat that. So it's and even without the GX, you can still just get there with all these tools and stuff. So Guardian's a really good deck, and I think people need to be more prepared for it moving forward, because they will be surprised by how hard their deck loses to it if they don't have any text for it. So yeah.
All right, Blaine or Pedro, do you guys have anything you want to add about Guardian?
Not much. It just gets slammed into the ground by Green Zard. One Reshi Zard the deck cannot handle. You just go in with Volcanion and then switch over to a Reshi Zard in. So I really like Guardy, except for the fact that it loses to Reshi Zard.
Yeah, I guess.
Oh, and the DDG deck. That's a big one too.
I don't know. In my mind, Garde lost to everything. It's like, why you play Garde War when you can play Red Green? It's like a nerf at Red Green. It was so funny because I faced one that's gonna be quickly. I had a start, so it was like, okay, I can chill with my 3 Dennis. He will 150 my 3 Dennis, and then I will 3. I have all the time, but Reggie can do the same, but one he kill you. So, in my opinion, play Reggie Green instead of Garden Ball.
All right, another deck coming in that had a little bit of talk here and there online, but ended up really not having much of a performance is Dark Box. I think, people like the new shiny thing, and it was definitely the new archetype to come out of the newest set. But Zach Kreckler did end up finishing in the top 16, and I believe started day 2 at 4-0 as well, so had definitely a really good start. Pedro, what are your thoughts on Dark Box?
That was really good in our testing. We tested against versions because we tested a lot of Ninetales. So we tested against Starbucks with 3 Weavile GX because 2 we were not enough because they simply custom capture 2 Weavile GX and it's GG. But the deck was like new Naganade Quaxer. If you have a really good day and you set up like crazy turn 2, like double Weavile, your attacker, and you 150-60 turn 2, and then Tiranitar, KO 1, you win everything. Mm-hmm. You play a lot of different stages. As the setup like not
So I think we're having a little bit of audio trouble coming in and out from Pedro, but I think you guys definitely got the gist of that there, hopefully. Danny or Blaine, anything real quick you want to add about Dark Box?
You go.
I think Dark Box is not that good of a deck. I think it has a clear issue when they choose to keep gusting up your Weavile over and over again. But I think the way Zach played it was innovative enough to explain his top 16 finish. He had the B strings in there to kind of make up for maybe not getting out a nag at all. You can literally not have nag for the whole game, then on B string turn, double B string to a Poipole, and then you have 4 energies in place, so you can attack with any of your big attacks. So I mean, the way Zach played it was trying to, I guess, compensate for the deck's like natural inconsistencies and stuff. Same with like putting the Hapu in there to find the B strings. But I don't think you could play it any other way and actually find success with it. And I don't think that moving forward it will have too much success, especially with decks now putting in like the Jesse James and stuff. There's going to be way more ways to ruin the hand and to stick a power plant in play than ever before. So I think a deck like Darkbox is inherently disadvantaged just by the way the meta is shaping up.
All right. Next up, I wanted to briefly talk about Keldeo Bronzong Stall. One did get top 32, but ultimately not a deck that saw a huge amount of success, but there definitely were some of them there, especially in day one, I believe. There was a decent amount running around at the top. Blaine, what are your thoughts on Keldeo Bronzong?
Oh man, again, I was so scared of playing against this. If you guys followed any of my reports or at all, I played against Sander Wojcik, I think that's how you pronounce his name.
Mm-hmm.
And he flipped over a Dewpider. So even when I beat Grant Manley, I get the Grant Manley special. So I was scared of hitting that again. That's also a part of the reason why I decided to include Power Plant. So moving forward, though, Keldeo gets obviously Jesse and James. But the deck, as the way Peter Kika actually played it, I really enjoy that version.
The
It's going to be, the Vaporeon GX. I think somebody was telling me that those cards shot up so much in value over the past couple of days. So it's kind of funny. Anyway, the deck actually seems extremely well positioned, just with Lusamine chaining again, and with the next set being able to use PCL and other stuff rather than having to use Gardenia.
Sure.
So it gets two big cards from the new set, really.
All right, either you guys, Pedro or Danny, have anything to add about Keldeo?
Deck is cool. Will be better with this. Not sure if it's the best middle deck. Pidgeotto control seems really powerful with flexible options, I guess. Funny fact, I was with a friend with the deck. Oh, bro, I'm gonna play Keldeo Bronze. Do you know that it's a card named Tournate? What is that? Oh no, Tortonito Charity GX. That was fine. But yeah, the deck is better now with DSCJ. I don't know. There is a lot of we lose. I mean,
you may have to repeat that one for me. It's a little bit buzzy on this side.
Yeah, I think we got the gist of it at least there. All right, so what Pedro just mentioned a deck that we haven't talked about yet, but definitely one very worth mentioning is Pidgeotto Control. Definitely a big surprise coming out of Team DDG. So who better to tell us about the deck and where it sits moving forward than Danny, who ended up getting top 32 of the deck. So where do you think it sits? And I guess while we're talking about just like these kind of control-esque decks, if you want to briefly touch on something like Shedinja, a deck that got a little bit of hype moving in, but then saw like literally no success at Worlds. Where do you think these control-y decks fit, especially Pidgeotto Control?
All right, so I'm gonna preface this answer with there are 6 different control decks right now. There's Pidgeotto, there's the Keldeo Vaporeon thing, there's Keldeo Stall, there's Shedinja, and then what else? There's the Poi-Pole thing, the Infinity Stones thing from Cutter Town, and then one other one that's escaping me right now. But so there's a lot of control BS, stupid decks running around right now, and I'd say that the one that's most poised out of all of them, or I guess the two that are most poised out of all of them to continue, would be the Pidgeotto one and Shedinja, and that's because Keldeo, like Pedro was saying, they have like the Turtonator and stuff, and like Keldeo is just not gonna cut it anymore. People are gonna have answers. So I don't think that's very good. Maybe the attacking Kika version is a little bit better and could be explored moving forward. Pidgeotto specifically is the kind of deck where you have the consistency engine that it has, and then the rest of the deck is based on what cards do I need to win a game against X deck with this deck. And then you change the shell of the deck, based on what you need to beat, right? It's gonna consistently evolve with the meta around it, which is what gives it so much room. And similarly, Shedinja is gonna do the same thing, especially now with Jesse and James, where you're gonna be able to have more options against more decks, and that is going to be, that is going to give it, I guess, a second wind. And besides that, the other decks seem lacking in the options department, which is why I can't see any of them excelling over these two decks.
Sure. I posted an interview yesterday that I did with Isaiah, who obviously played the Pidgeotto deck and got top 8 with it, and he talked about how moving forward towards Atlantic City, Jesse and James seems like a card that could be a real problem for the format, because it fits so well with these control decks. Danny, do you feel the same way? Do you feel like Jesse and James is going to cause issues? Like, is it a card that is going to not really stay around that much longer? What do you think?
I don't think Jesse and James is bannable, but I think it is really good. I
Pedro
think it's
seems
really...
to disagree. Blaine and Pedro, what are you guys' thoughts on Jesse and James moving forward? How does it change the format? I think that's like the only real card coming out of Hidden Fates that really has an impact. There's like the Charizard GX that Mewbox can play now. That's like, okay, it's just a 4 energy 300 GX attack, so that's pretty good. You can get there a little quicker than the Reshizard attack. And then, like, I guess Starmie GX is, like, a coolish card. Lets you accelerate energy. But other than that, Jesse and James definitely seems like the biggest impact card. Blaine and Pedro, what are your thoughts?
Well, I do think it's a problem. And the reason why I say this is because they also printed Wheezing in that set. And if you don't know what Wheezing does, Wheezing says... if you discard it with Jesse and James, your opponent discards another card. So theoretically, you can be discarding 4 cards every single turn with Shedinja, which is absolutely absurd because you can recycle the Weezings with Rock's Grit, and then you can get back stuff with Palpad and Surge and all that. And then also in Pidgeotto, you can run that. So the entire format is going to have to revolve around that, and Draft Rig is going to become a lot more important. And being able to Lost Zone stuff like Jesse and James and the Weezing is basically going to be the determinant in who builds their decks correctly and how you can beat those sort of control decks, I think.
All right. Well, I think everyone's excited to be playing. Once Hidden Fates becomes legal, it officially gets released today, actually. So
yeah, it's like I can't wait to play
so
Pidgeotto, Shedinja, Jesse James Mirrors in all the regionals this year.
All right, so I think we covered just about everything that had at least some level of success at the World Championships, and hopefully that'll give you guys who are watching a decent idea of what to expect moving forward at the upcoming regionals, as well as your League Cups that could be happening in the coming weekends. So as we go to closing, we're going to go around the circle real fast. I want everyone to give us 4 decks, 2 Tier 1 decks, like the 2 decks they think are probably the best 2 decks in the format, and then 2 Tier 2 decks that they think are really powerful, but are just maybe slightly outclassed by the Tier 1 decks. So, Danny, why don't you kick us off with the 4 best decks in your mind?
All right. I'd say that the 4 best decks are probably going to be one of the 2 control decks I mentioned, most likely Pidgeotto, just because it's easier to build around. Pika, definitely, and you need to play the Sigilyph in Pika. Please keep the Sigilyph in Pika. Reshizard, whether you want to play ability or greens, like I said, is based on, I guess, consistency, options, all that. And then the last one, I guess, Blounds, because it's just like the perfect deck. So,
Pedro, top 4 decks in your mind.
For me, Tier Zero, both Reggie versions, and the best control deck, depends on the meta game, like Danny said. And then later, probably Picasec is always scary, and Blounce is like, I guess, is the clearly top 4 for me too.
Blaine, anything different, or you agree with the top 4 of these guys?
Not particularly. I have to say, control is definitely something that you're going to have to watch out for. If you do not build your deck correctly, you will not have a fun time. The second top deck would probably have to be Reshi, both the ability and greens. Ability more so because it has a better control matchup. And then tier 2 decks definitely Blounds and something like Pika or like I guess Greenzard or even Malamar if you want a high roll.
Okay. All right, so I believe that will conclude the video at this time. I'm going to give these guys a chance if they want to do any shout-outs to sponsors, any social media plugs for themselves. I'm going to give them a chance to do that. Thank you guys also so much for coming on, making this work. Of course, Pedro being in Spain, working with us in across the pond, and Blaine and Danny being able to do this a little early. So, Danny, why don't you kick us off? Any shout-outs, any plugs you want to give? Go ahead.
You already know. Shout out to Team DDG. God tier team. 2019-20 season is gonna be insane for us. Check out the No Leaks YouTube channel. Myself and Caleb Gedimer run that. Right now it's kind of dry because we had Worlds. We had a lot going on, but we're about to start picking up big time with content. Check out my stream, twitch.tv/DAXPTCG. Also, that is my Twitter handle. And yeah, hand it off to these guys.
Pedro, any plugs or shout-outs?
So shout out to my team Limitless, to all the boys in the bootcamp, and my Spanish friends that helped me to test the Reggie Ninetales like 1 month for Worlds. It was a really good testing with everyone, so really thanks to them. Follow me on Twitter, Sininchi. Follow me on Twitch, Sininchi18. I will come back to streaming soon, probably early September. So yeah, Danny and my streamings are the best, so check it out. And yeah, and hopefully everyone had a great time in Worlds, and I will be competing in Cologne regionals in Europe. So see you there, guys.
And Blaine, close us out.
Yeah, definitely. So if you guys want, go ahead and follow me on Twitter, just Blaine Hill 2001. I feel like I'm a little bit lacking here. I don't have a YouTube or a Twitch or anything. But if you'd like, I guess I'm dropping my first article for PokeBeach today. So go ahead, check that out if you want a tournament report and matchups over for that Greenzard deck that took me to third.
Nice. And congrats once again to everyone on their success this season, and especially at the World Championships, biggest tournament of the year. And I wish all three of you the most success this coming year as well. And guys, thank you so much for watching the video. Definitely be sure to leave a like down below if you enjoyed, and be sure to check out all of these guys on their social medias. I'll leave a link to everything in the description, so please drop them a follow. I enjoy both Pedro and Danny's streams, so be sure to check them out as well. And that is going to do it for me. You can also follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, and Instagram at TrainerChip. And we're going to get out of here, guys. Thanks so much for watching, and until next time, take care.